Night had fallen over Sanctuary Basin as Jax lay on his narrow bed, unable to sleep. The soft vibration he'd felt through the floor continued, rhythmic and subtle, like a distant heartbeat calling from deep within the earth. Most residents would attribute the sensation to the facility's machinery, but Jax knew differently. Something below was pulsing in sync with the strange warmth that occasionally bloomed in his chest. He placed his palm flat against the cool floor again, letting the sensation intensify. The heat in his core responded, spreading outward along channels he'd never been conscious of before. For a brief moment, something within him resonated with the distant call. "You feel it too, don't you?" Jax jerked upright. A young woman with dark hair pulled back in a practical braid stood in the narrow aisle between sleeping pods. Her medical technician's uniform bore the insignia of Oakland Research Hospital. "I'm Mira Chen," she said, keeping her voice low to avoid waking others. "I was part of the team that pulled you from the collapsed shelter in San Francisco yesterday." Jax studied her warily. "How did you get assigned to the same residential module?" "I requested it." Her directness was unexpected, "because I saw something when we found you, something the others missed." "What do you mean?" Mira glanced around to ensure no one was listening. "Your body was glowing. A blue spiral pattern traced your entire spine. It faded before the others arrived, but I know what I saw." "That's impossible," Jax said, keeping his voice low. Conversations about spiral manifestation always attracted attention in public spaces. "I would have known if I had awakened a spiral core." "Not necessarily. Early manifestations can be subtle, especially without proper training." Mira gestured for him to follow her away from the sleeping area. "Your parents were researching anomalous energy patterns before the attack, weren't they?" Jax tensed. "How do you know about their work?" "I was assigned to their project temporarily. My specialty is biomedical imaging, specifically mapping energy flow through organic tissue." She led him to a small maintenance alcove where they could speak more privately. Their final transmission to the research network mentioned a breakthrough involving primordial spiral configurations. "They never told me about any breakthrough," Jax said, though he remembered his parents' growing excitement in the days before the Abyssal attack that claimed their lives. They had been working longer hours, speaking in coded terms, even at home. "The transmission was cut off," Mira explained. "We never received the full data, but now I'm wondering if whatever they discovered," she hesitated, studying his face, "has something to do with you." Before their conversation could continue, a commotion erupted at the module's entrance. Military personnel escorted a group of cultivators from Crimson Guard through the area, their uniforms bearing the distinctive red insignia of our bone-born-level cultivators. "They're cycling defensive teams," Mira explained. "Even this far inland, we maintain cultivator protection." She checked her wrist communicator and frowned. "I need to get back to my shift. But you should report to Medical Station Helios for your scheduled examination. We'll talk more later." Jax nodded, watching as she disappeared into the crowd of military personnel. With a slight reluctance, he made his way to Medical Station Helios, as instructed. The medical complex occupied what had once been the facility's central testing chamber, now partitioned into treatment areas and diagnostic labs. A technician directed him to an examination cubicle, where automated scanners hummed to life, methodically passing over his body. One of the screens flickered unexpectedly, its display momentarily distorting before stabilizing. "System glitch?" Jax asked. "Probably," the technician replied, though her expression suggested otherwise. "We've been having some unusual electromagnetic interference in this sector." The scan continued for several more minutes, focusing particular attention on his spinal column. When it finally concluded, the technician studied the results with growing interest. "Have you ever been tested for spiral sensitivity?" she asked casually. "No. Why?" "Just routine screening. We test all arrivals now." She made a notation in his file. "You're done for now." As Jax left the medical station, he couldn't shake the feeling that they'd found something they weren't sharing with him. He had barely made it back to the main corridor when a security officer approached him. "Jax Carter, Lieutenant Quan would like to speak with you," the officer said. It wasn't phrased as a request. Lieutenant Quan's office was located in a restricted section of Sanctuary Basin, requiring multiple security clearances to access. Her uniform carried the subtle markers of someone who had risen quickly through intelligence division ranks during the Abyssal crisis. "Thank you for coming, Carter," she said. As Jax entered, nothing in her manner suggested this was an optional meeting. "I understand you arrived from San Francisco yesterday." "Yes," Jax confirmed, taking the seat she indicated across from her desk. "I was in a shelter that collapsed during Commander Arden's battle with Vorjul." Hero Kwan's expression remained neutral, but her eyes sharpened slightly. "According to rescue records, you were buried under approximately 15 meters of reinforced concrete for over 4 hours before extraction." She tapped her console, bringing up schematics of the collapsed structure. "With no serious injuries. That's statistically improbable." Jax maintained a carefully blank expression. "Lucky, I guess. Perhaps Quan studied him." "Your parents were Doctors Eliza and Michael Carter, correct, leading researchers in anomalous energy pattern analysis for the Coastal Research Division." "Yes, their work was classified Level 4. Did they ever discuss it with you?" Jax's guard went up immediately. "They followed security protocols. I knew they were studying abyssal energy signatures, nothing specific." Quan nodded, though Jax couldn't tell if she believed him. "We've been analyzing the data fragments recovered from their facility after the attack 6 months ago. Their final transmission mentioned a breakthrough regarding dormant configurations and primordial resonance." She let the statement hang in the air, clearly watching for his reaction. "I don't know anything about that," Jax said truthfully. Quan seemed about to press further when her communication device chimed. She glanced at it, her expression changing subtly. "It seems you've been flagged by Medical Station Helios for additional evaluation," she said. "Interesting timing." Before Jax could respond, the facility's warning systems activated, suddenly bathing the office in pulsing red light. A calm voice announced over the communication system, "Attention, all personnel, security protocol, Delta 3, is now in effect. Please proceed to designated secure areas. This is not a drill." Quan was immediately on her feet, checking her tactical display. "Perimeter breach detected at multiple points. Choir-class Abyssal signatures approaching from the northwest sector." Her tone was controlled, but urgent. "You need to get to a shelter zone immediately." "Choir-class this far inland?" Jax asked, surprised Abyssal commanders typically operated only in coastal regions. "Unprecedented," Quan confirmed, already moving toward the door. "Security personnel will direct you to the nearest shelter zone." Jax joined the flow of civilians, moving through corridors toward deeper levels of the facility. Despite the alarm, evacuation proceeded with practiced efficiency. 6 months of abyssal incursions had taught humanity to adapt quickly to threat protocols. He reached a designated shelter zone, a reinforced section designed to withstand direct assault. Armed guards from Crimson Guard and Vein Shield Corps took up defensive positions, while cultivators from Iron Vein Division prepared tactical formations. Display screens showed exterior views from surveillance drones. The Nevada desert stretched out under fading daylight, seemingly empty until a blur of movement caught everyone's attention. Something was slicing through the sand with fluid serpentine motion, leaving a rippling disturbance in its wake. "Single choir class approaching from the northwest," announced a security officer. "Iron Vein Division has been deployed to intercept." On screen, 3 human figures shot into the air, hyperbody cultivators utilizing their flight capabilities. They moved with coordinated precision, positioning themselves to surround the approaching threat. Jax found himself drawn to the screen, watching with unusual intensity. As the cultivators engaged the Choir-class Abyssal, he could almost feel the flow of energy between them, the tactical adjustments, the surge of spiral power. The battle was evenly matched. The level 5 Choir-class commander was of equal cultivation rank to the hyperbody defenders. Something in the Abyssal's movement pattern struck him as odd. "It's not attacking," he murmured more to himself than anyone else. "It's searching." The Choir-class executed a series of complex maneuvers, trading blows with the cultivators while gradually shifting position. Unlike typical Choir-class commanders that coordinated war formations, this one moved with singular purpose. It broke through a gap in the cultivators' formation, not by overpowering them, but through tactical positioning, sacrificing parts of its outer shell to focused attacks while its core consciousness drove forward. Instead of retreating or pressing its attack, it changed course, heading directly toward the facility, specifically toward the sector where Jax stood watching. Alarms blared with renewed urgency. The Choir-class hit the outer perimeter at full speed, breaching the first line of defenses. The facility's automated turrets activated firing concentrated energy bursts that the creature evaded with unnerving precision. Then, as the Abyssal reached the facility's main access point, it paused, hovering directly above the entrance, its sensory appendages extending in a radial pattern. Jax felt a strange sensation, a cold awareness tracing along his spine. The Choir-class suddenly twisted its sensory organs, orienting directly toward the shelter zone. Despite the layers of reinforced concrete and steel between them, Jax felt the creature's attention focus specifically on him. For a brief, impossible moment, a connection formed between them. The Choir-class wasn't just an enemy commander, it was a seeker driven by purpose that transcended simple destruction. The moment shattered when a brilliant flash of energy struck the creature from above. One of the Iron Vein cultivators had caught up his aerial attack, forcing the Choir-class to abandon its position. Other cultivators arrived seconds later, surrounding the Abyssal and driving it away from the facility. But as the Choir-class retreated, Jax would have sworn it cast one final look toward him, a moment of recognition that defied explanation. "That was strange," said a security officer nearby. "Choir-class never operate this far inland, and that movement pattern, it wasn't standard attack protocol. Almost like it was looking for something specific." Another responded. Jax remained silent, the cold certainty settling in his chest. It had been looking for him. The facility remained on high alert for the next 2 hours. Eventually, the all-clear signal sounded, but rather than being allowed to return to his quarters, Jax was approached by 2 security officers. "Mr. Carter, please come with us. Commander Arden would like to speak with you personally." They escorted him through a series of secure checkpoints, descending deeper into the facility than he'd been permitted to go before. Finally, they arrived at a research laboratory, where Commander Gale Arden himself stood waiting. His imposing figure was even more remarkable up close. Despite still showing signs of battle fatigue, the commander's presence filled the room with an unmistakable aura of power. Mira Chen stood to one side, operating a complex array of equipment that Jax didn't recognize. "What do you want from me?" Jax asked, increasingly uncomfortable with the situation. "We need to understand what you are," Gale said directly. "Your energy signature doesn't match any documented human spiral pattern, yet it's strong enough to attract abyssal attention hundreds of miles inland." Mira approached the resonance chamber's control console. "This is an advanced version of the equipment your parents were developing. It can map internal energy flow with precision far beyond standard medical scanners. And if I refuse, that would be your right," Gale acknowledged. "But considering an abyssal somehow detected you through our shielding and specifically sought you out, understanding what's happening might be in your best interest as well as ours." Jax hesitated, then nodded slowly. "What do I need to do?" "Just stand in the chamber," Mira explained. "The equipment does the rest." Jax stepped into the circular platform at the center of the device. Transparent panels rose around him as the system activated, bathing him in soft blue light. He felt a gentle tingling sensation as the chamber began mapping his internal energy pathways. Mira's eyes widened as data flowed across her screens. "Commander, you need to see this." Gale moved to her side, studying the readings with intense focus. "That's impossible." "What is it?" Jax called from within the chamber. Before either could answer, the facility's alarm system activated with an urgent, high-pitched tone, different from the standard alert. "Perimeter breach, multiple sectors," announced a voice over the communication system. "Multiple contacts, all personnel to battle stations." Gale rushed back to the command center, Jax and Mira following close behind. The tactical displays showed exterior views of the facility, revealing a horrifying sight. Not one, but dozens of Choir-class Abyssals converging from all directions. "How did they find us?" a tactical officer demanded. "This facility is shielded against detection." "They're not attacking," Jax said suddenly, the same inexplicable certainty from before washing over him. "They're still searching." Gale turned to him sharply. "What did you say?" Before Jax could explain, the facility shuddered violently. Warning indicators flashed across the displays as structural integrity alarms triggered throughout the complex. "Seismic disturbance detected," reported another officer. "But it's not coming from the surface. It's underneath us." The floor beneath them trembled, then cracked a narrow fissure, spreading across the reinforced concrete. With unnatural precision, Jax felt a sudden heat blooming in his chest, radiating outward through his limbs as the facility's vibrations synchronized with something deep within him. "Jax," Mira called out in alarm, watching as a faint blue glow began to emanate from beneath his skin. The fissure widened directly beneath Jax's feet. As Gale lunged forward to pull him to safety, the floor gave way completely, creating a perfectly circular opening that dropped Jax into darkness below. The last thing he saw was Gale's outstretched hand, too far away to reach him, and the commander's expression of shocked recognition, as if witnessing something he'd seen once before. Then Jax was falling, plummeting through layers of the facility and beyond, into ancient tunnels that had existed long before humans built structures above them. The walls of the shaft glowed with faint spiral patterns that brightened as he passed, responding to his presence. He should have been terrified, but a strange calm settled over him instead. This descent felt inevitable, as if he were finally returning to a place he'd always been meant to find. Above, the Choir-class Abyssals converged on the breach point, their search patterns shifting to focused observation. They made no move to attack, instead, forming a perimeter around the opening, as if standing guard. Far below, Jax's fall slowed as unseen forces cushioned his descent. He landed gently in a vast chamber, unlike anything human architecture had created. A space dominated by intricate carvings of spiral patterns that pulsed with soft blue light. At the center of the chamber stood a crystalline structure. Within it, Jax could make out the silhouette of a tall, imposing figure, a man with long, white-silver hair that seemed to float in suspended animation. This had to be a powerful cultivator of some kind, one who had been sleeping here for what appeared to be centuries deep beneath Earth's surface. Spiral deep, the ancient relic buried beneath Earth's surface, once the center of a destroyed cosmic civilization, had awakened after millennia of dormancy, and it had called Jax the only human with a unique spiral configuration to its heart.